What's up, New York? You've got questions about CAURD and we've got answers. Through our efforts to create an easy and accessible application and process, we have produced several resource videos to assist you. In today's presentation, Allison King does a step-by-step walkthrough of how to fill out the Conditional Adult Use Retail Dispensary License application, or as some may call it, CAURD. If you have any questions beyond this video, you can check out our resource page at cannabis.ny.gov/CAURD, or you can reach out to licensing at ocm.ny.gov. And for all cannabis updates for New York State, you can follow us on our social platforms at NYS_cannabis. Before we get started, please be aware that you must first create a profile on the New York Business Express page. Once this is completed, you may fill out the CAURD application clearly and with as many details as you currently have. Now, let's jump right in.
So after completing my business profile in New York Business Express for my planned dispensary, I can complete the actual CAURD application. My planned dispensary is not associated with a nonprofit organization, so I will select no on this very first screen of this application and continue on. This page shows the business ownership structure that I completed in my business profile. If I need to make any changes to my business ownership structure, I can use these buttons here to change it. Everything looks good to me, and we have 100% ownership entered, so I will move on to the next page. On this page, I have to share the ownership structure of Dispensary Investments LLC, which is one of the owners of my planned dispensary. Dispensary Investments LLC has two owners, and I will enter them here. The first owner is named John Kelly, and his date of birth, February 2nd, 1922. This individual resides in the United States, so I have to provide a social security number and a phone number, as well as an address where he can be contacted. Mr. Money is a 40% owner of Dispensary Investments LLC. The second owner of this business is Susan Roy. Her birthday is March 3rd, 1933. She is not a resident of the United States, so I do not have to provide a social security number. I enter her phone number and contact address. And her ownership percentage, which is 60%. Combined, we have total ownership percentage of 100% for this business, Dispensary Investments LLC. Now I can move on to the next page. On this page, now I have to identify the person who has sole control of my planned dispensary. Sole control means that this person has the ability or power to direct the management and policies of my planned dispensary. Remember that this person must be just as involved, have qualifying business experience, and own at least 30% of the planned dispensary. This person is the foundation of how my application will be evaluated, so it is very important that I consider this selection carefully. My owner with sole control is Mark Sativa. So I will choose him here and attest that this is all true, and I can move on. Mark, who we just established has sole control over the planned dispensary, lives in New York, so he has significant presence in New York State. I don't need to submit any documentation to prove this yet, but I may need to in the future. In this section, I will provide information on the owners of my planned dispensary who are justice involved. The justice involved owner's definition is listed here, but if you have questions about if you meet this criteria, please visit the OCM website for further guidance. The person who I just indicated who has sole control over the application is pre-selected here. No other owners of my business are justice involved. Remember that your planned dispensary has to be majority owned by justice involved people. So if Mark owned less than 51% of my planned dispensary, I would need to identify at least one other owner here who is justice involved that would get me to the 51% ownership threshold. Or I could change my ownership structure so Mark has a majority ownership share. As it is, Mark is a 55% owner of my business, so it is okay that he is the only justice involved owner. I have to provide details on the marijuana conviction that makes Mark justice involved. Mark has 2 relevant convictions, one for unlawful possession of marijuana in the first degree in 1995, which I will enter now. And then he has another conviction that makes him justice involved for criminal sale of marijuana in the 3rd degree from 2002. I should submit information on every possible conviction that is relevant that would make this person justice involved. I will have to complete this details page for each of the convictions that I entered on the last page. At the top here, it lists what conviction I am filling out the details for on this page. This conviction was on Mark himself, so I will select self. His name has not changed, so I do not need to complete that information. The year of the incident should be auto-filled. We have to submit proof that Mark received this conviction on himself. I have a certificate of disposition for this conviction, so I will select that checkbox and then upload a file. If I had more than one piece of documentation for this conviction, I could upload it as well. I also need to provide the residential address where Mark was living at the time of the arrest or conviction. At the time of the arrest, Mark was living at this address. This address does not have to be in New York State, but the conviction has to be in New York State. Then I need to provide proof that Mark lived at this address. I have a utility bill from Mark from this time period. It has to be dated within 6 months before or after the incident. Please remember that all documents submitted should be clear and legible so the office can accurately review my eligibility for a dispensary license. Now I will complete details on the second conviction that makes Mark justice involved. This was also on himself. If it was on a family member, I would have to provide the name of the family member and proof of the relationship. This year of incident is also autofilled for 2002. For this conviction, we have a police file that indicates the existence of a conviction. So I will upload that here. Again, I have to provide the address where Mark was living at the time of the incident. If Mark was living in public housing or did not have permanent housing at the time of the incident, I could select one of these checkboxes and provide proof as well. For the 2002 conviction, I have a pay stub that shows that Mark was living at this address within 6 months. I will upload that here. Mark, who has sole control of the Plain Dispensary and is just as involved as we just established, also has to have qualifying business experience. Mark owned a profitable hardware store for 16 years, so I can check this box and move on. Here I can upload a document like a formation agreement, tax return, or financial audit that shows that Mark owned this business. In this table, I will provide information about every relevant qualifying business I would like to supply. We provide the name, Mark's Hardware Store, and the FEIN. Any business that had employees should have an FEIN for tax purposes. If the business was a sole proprietorship with no employees, I could enter the Social Security number of the business owner instead. On this page, I can provide details about Mark's Hardware Store. I need to upload proof of the business's number of employees and proof of operating at a specific location if applicable. Mark was a 100% owner of this store, so I can indicate that on the application. I also have to provide tax returns from 2 years when the business was profitable. These do not have to be consecutive years or the most recent years. In this example, I have tax returns from 1999 and 2010 for the hardware store that show that the business was profitable. Once I have completed details about the qualifying business, I can move on to the next section. Here we have to provide some more information about the Plain Dispensary itself. I need to upload organizational documents up for the dispensary, which could be its articles of organization, certificate of incorporation, partnership agreement, or any similar documents that show how the dispensary is legally structured. If something has changed in the legal structure of the business since these organizational documents were created, I can explain it here. There are a number of documents that I need to provide here. This page asks for a lot of details about my Plain Dispensary's contracts and agreements. If I don't have any of these figured out yet, I don't have to upload anything yet. If I am selected for a CAURD license, I will have to submit these documents at a later date. I do not have any contracts, agreements, or vendors figured out yet, so I will save those for the future. Here we have more questions about the Plain Dispensary itself. One of my owner's dispensary investments has some old fines and fees that have been resolved. I can provide details here of what happened and how it was resolved. All the supporting documents I provide must be compiled into one PDF that is clear and legible for the office to review. I get to identify the region I would like to open my Plain Dispensary in. I am located in Albany, so the Capital District is my first choice, but I could choose any region in the state if I wanted to. I don't have to choose where I currently live. For this dispensary, my next preference is the Mohawk Valley, then the Mid-Hudson Valley, the Bronx, and the North Country. The next section of the application asks me about my true party of interest, or TPI. A TPI is any owner of my planned dispensary, who should all be listed here. And these are the people who I put in Business Express as the owners of my planned dispensary. Beyond owners, TPI also includes any people or businesses with a financial interest in my planned dispensary, even if they do not have ownership or control of the business. TPI also includes any spouses of the owners. I need to add any of these additional TPI here. Mark is married, so I will add his spouse, Marcia. My planned dispensary also has a chief financial officer, Susan Tincture, who is not an owner, but can exert control over the business. So I will add her here as well. Now that I have entered all of my additional TPI, I can move on to the next section. I need to complete these pages for every TPI for my planned dispensary. This first TPI is one of my owners of my planned dispensary, Dispensary Investments, LLC. This business is a partner in my dispensary. I need to complete all these questions and provide the entity's history disclosure for the entity, as well as a tax and finance clearance form for this entity. These are very important documents, and my application cannot move forward until these forms are completed for every single TPI and submitted. With these next questions, if I do not have any of these completed yet, I can submit my application without uploading these documents, but I will be asked to provide them if I am selected for a CAURD license. Now I have to complete the TPI page for Mark Sativa, one of the individual owners. I have to upload photo ID for this TPI, as well as the personal history disclosure and the Department of Tax and Finance clearance form. I need to complete this process for every person who is a TPI. Here, I'm asked to complete this information for Marcia, the additional individual TPI, and I will select that she is the spouse of the president, vice president, secretary, etc. However, all the information that I need to provide for her is the exact same as it is for the other individuals who are TPI. Again, I need to make sure that all of the documents I upload are clear and legible so the office can review. I will be allowed to make changes to my application after I submit it for 30 days. And if I need to fix anything on my application in the future, I will be able to do so. After completing the TPI section, I have to provide information on the funding for my planned dispensary, including any cash or borrowed sources and any planned expenses. My planned dispensary has an investor, Joe Cannabis, who has provided funding for the business. I will fill out his information here. He is one of the TPI, so I select TPI here. My planned dispensary has an investor, Joe Cannabis, who has provided funding for the business. Here, I will select TPIs because he is one of the TPI already entered for my business and the amount of cash that he has provided. If I have any documents to upload describing the terms of the agreement with Joe Cannabis, I can provide it here. Additionally, I can provide information on any borrowed funds, such as funds from a bank or other financial institution, here. I am also asked to provide any actual or anticipated expenses that I know of. I know that I will be contracting outside. I know that I will be contracting with a vendor to provide some of my equipment at my business, so I can provide the details here. After completing the financial disclosure section, I just need to tell the office if I have any trade secrets. Trade secrets are any practices or processes that are generally not known outside of the company. If you have any trade secrets to disclose, you can do so here. Now I just need to select the primary contact for this application. I'm going to select Mark Sativa, and his information that we have already provided will be populated. Be sure to provide an accurate email address, as the majority of the communications with the office will be done through email. Next, I can select who process can be served upon. I'll select Joe Cannabis. And the person submitting the application. I'll select Joe Cannabis. And then for this person, we need to upload the front of a valid photo ID and the back. Again, please make sure this document is clear and legible. Additionally, you must attest that no person under the age of 21 is allowed to own or have an interest in your license. This is very important. If you have any issues with the date of birth that you have entered earlier in the application, they will show up here. Finally, I must complete these attestations for my application. Provide my initials here after reading each attestation thoroughly. These attestations list important rules and regulations that the applicant and the planned dispensary must abide by. After completing the attestations, my application is finished, and I can move on to submission. You have now successfully completed your CAURD application. Remember, you must submit a $2,000 application processing fee as well. The office will not begin to review your application until it has received the application and licensing fee via check. The $2,000 non-refundable application and licensing fee must be paid by check, mailed to the office via USPS, and postmarked no later than September 30th. The office will accept payment via a personal check, business check, cashier's check, or money order. To ensure your payment is received, the office highly recommends you send your payment via USPS. Mail carriers other than USPS may not deliver to the office's PO box. After completing the final page of the application, you will receive a confirmation email that contains your application number. You must print the confirmation email and include a copy with your payment. You should also write your application number in the notes portion of the submitted check in case the receipt inadvertently is separated from the payment. If your application is not selected, you should not expect a refund or credit in lieu of a refund. Each application has its own application and licensing fee, and it cannot be assumed they are interchangeable. If you have any questions about CAURD eligibility, the license's authorizations and conditions, the application process, and the application itself, they may be sent to the email address licensing@ocm.ny.gov. Thank you.